Welcome to the Taoist Secrets, The Great Awakening, a podcast by practicing disciples of Taoism at the Temple of Original Simplicity. This is episode 8. Today, Grand Master Alex Anatole, Master Richard Percuoco, David Wright, and Peter LaFarge discuss the principle of benevolence and the numerous other facets that this idea touches upon, such as entitlement, fairness, non-interference, and even the purpose of life.
This principle of benevolence, touch a lot of other principles, probably one of the most principles of which we discussed before. I think it's good to start it, actually. So that's what is the purpose of life? That's the question which usually any seeker or students of Tao should ask. And not only them, a lot of people, intellectuals, ask the same question. What is the purpose of life? We as a Tao people, Tao men, we can just follow the idea which we received from our Taoist alchemist. In Taoist alchemy, said the purpose of life is a test. Test, that's what it is. The purpose of life, basically the life, this information which you got from the higher energy. We're going through certain tests in this life. So we can continue the test in another dimension. Physical body, it's just given to us so we can conquer the test. Either we conquered it or we'll fail. After physical death, according to, again, ours, Taoist alchemy, internal alchemy. Hun and Po, and we can explain what is a Hun and Po. Some kind of coordinate with each other. In other words, when prevailing intellect during our life here will be prevailing intellect. Yeah. So then our soul will continue journey to another dimension to enrich our Hun, prenatal energy. So come back again to simplify everything, because it could be very complex too. But in simplification, it's a test. Purpose of life is a test. And idea of benevolence, it's always touched again, like I said, many aspects. One of them, it's consequences of our actions. For instance, like, Ricky, you can explain about person who deserve or didn't deserve.
Sure. A lot of times we believe that, and we're taught when we're young, that benevolence is a great virtue. And as the Grand Master was explaining, there is some grand harmony in the universe. And each person's test and path is hooked to that grand harmony. And a lot of times we give people things that they don't deserve. That's really the aspect of benevolence, is that you're really bestowing some kind of gift or knowledge or material thing on someone that they truly haven't earned and that they don't deserve. This aspect creates a few psychological ramifications from this. The person themselves who didn't really work to deserve the gift that's bestowed upon them can create an sense of entitlement. A lot of times in this world today, you see people with this sense of entitlement that believe that life owes them something. Sometimes they're very lucky to be bestowed benevolently with these gifts, and then they think that they're entitled to these gifts forever. And that's not really how it works. The other aspect is that the bestower themselves actually believe that they're some kind of good Samaritan. I mean, no one does benevolence for no reason. Benevolence reflects on them like giving to charity. It makes them feel good about themselves. It makes them feel like they're a big deal. Many times also, benevolence can have a boomerang effect and actually backfire, in that the person who gets the gift a lot of times has resentment for the person that bestows it upon them. So we've all experienced this, where you help someone and you really do them what you believe is a great service. And in the end, they feel resentment towards you when you feel this negativity. So it's another aspect of benevolence. When you give someone something that they don't deserve, a lot of times they can resent you for it in the end. And the great Chinese author Pu Siling wrote this quote that says, "However, by giving someone undeservedly a rich reward of happiness and prosperity, one definitely brings down the wrath of the heavens on oneself." And that would be the bestower. So really, us bestowing benevolence upon someone that doesn't deserve it is really interference in their test and in the grand harmony of the universe. Because, as the Grand Master said, we're very limited, we don't understand the cause and effect of our actions. Sometimes our heart's in the right place. We're actually trying to be benevolent and give someone something that's useful for them. But because we don't understand cause and effect, our actions and our gift can be very detrimental to them. And as the Grand Master has said a number of times, in the immortal words of Dante, good intentions pave the road to hell.
Yes, Richard, that's absolutely correct. There is another few little aspects of so-called benevolence, because life is a test. How dare we, limited mortals, interfere with tests of other people? That's what it is. It's come back again to limitations of our own limitations. Plus, we actually never know the outcome of our actions. For instance, the man helps old woman with her bag cross the street. He does that. And then the old lady crossing another street and got hit by the truck. So basically, man did action of benevolence, but outcome is not that pleasant. Again, the fireman sacrificing his life, dragging the poor 8 years old kid from the fire, saving the kid, and basically died. 10 years later, 15 years later, the kid becomes a mass murderer. So what is the outcome, of this situation? And examples like this, we can make thousands of them. In other words, we have to be very careful to interfere with tests lives of other people. That's why the true Tao man never involved in any social events, because you don't know outcome of that. That's what politicians, they take great responsibility, supposed to be, because they interfere with the lives of thousands people. But the true Tao man never does that. Because again, it's come back to idea of equality, fairness, and etc. You see, basically the general idea that we're all equal, for instance. But in reality, we're not. We're born in different families, from different background. Different people have actually different chance to get a great education. The different chance to inherit even certain amount of wealth, which help them to educate themselves, their children, etc. We're born with the different abilities. That's the Mozart was born with 4 years old. He already was writing the beautiful music. Some people born, they speak with the different languages 3-4 years old. It's just another proof of prenatal energies. So we're not really equal by intellect, by education, upbringing. It's a nice fairy tale about equality. So the people politicians basically, who wants to manipulate the masses, the crowd, they have one great tool, which is really, we Tao people scared to death in listening that. It's all word fairness. All you have to do is scream, it's not fair. That's it. And then actually millions of unhappy people will scream also, oh my God, it's not fair. Let's do for a fairness. I was born and raised in the Soviet Union, so I heard all the fairness. Millions of people killed just to be fair with each other. But in reality, a small group of gangsters, which call communists, pick up the power and enslave anybody else. So that's it. But the key word is a fairness. If anybody wants to create a social mess, all you have to do is scream, it's not fair. And that's it. The cost of untouchables will raise immediately by millions, millions, and millions. Because it's basically to destroy, it's very easy to destroy. And that's what low-class mentality love to do. But to create, it's a different story. So as a good Tao man, we never ever involve in any social events. Why? Because it's so difficult to take care of our own life. My own life so complex and so difficult. And I'm constantly fighting with myself for understanding of reality, for understanding of my goals, for understanding what I really need, or what is the fantasies, what is desires of the mind. So it's so much work to work with myself. How dare I can stick my nose in something else. That's the basic postulate of the classical Taoism. Let's try to take care of myself. And please, don't even try to influence or change, God forbid, someone. So the word equality and fairness, very dangerous words. We have to be very careful with that. And to keep this precarious balance between taking care of myself and communicating with anybody else and aspect of benevolence, that's very precarious business, really. Also, let's not forget about programming. We're programmed by society, by parents, by anybody else, that we have to be benevolent people. What is a benevolence for a Tao man? I do my things, and please, don't disturb my life by trying to program me what should I do, what I shouldn't. I should do only one thing, take care of myself and my cocoon, 2-3 people who are around me. That's the maximum I can do. If I have one little glass of water, I'll share it with another 2-3 people. But I can't really share it with the hundreds of people around me. It just again come back. As you can see, the idea of benevolence touch, idea of the fairness, equality, and most important, limitations. Come back again what great teacher said. How limited, which is us, little human being, can understand unlimited, which is a great universe. All we have just manifestations of the Creator, manifestation of the gods, and follow those manifestations. According to these manifestations, we should live. Please continue.
Well, I was thinking of going on from what you said about the difficulties of trying to be benevolent to other people, that one of the current social phenomena is what they call the helicopter parents, or the phenomenon beyond that one is what they call the bulldozer parents, who they go to their children and they take all the obstacles and all the difficulties away from the children, so the children never have to solve any problems. If the child has a problem, the parent immediately steps in and solves it for them, which means when the child is of an age to be an adult, they have no skills to do these things themselves. And the parents are trying to be benevolent, trying to do the right thing, but they're actually doing their child a great disservice by not letting them learn how to solve problems for themselves, which they are eventually going to have to be able to do.
Yeah, David, you're talking about the same idea of the test, interference with the test of the child. Trying to make life of the child too easy, actually destroying the potential of the child, if child has the potential. But again, if you remember what Plato said, how can you check your potential if you don't test it? You have to test your power. We constantly have to test our power. Again, people, children, or any human beings can come from different backgrounds, absolutely. Let's call from different castes. Even this word had a bad connotation. But it takes unbelievable determination and willpower to conquer yourself. And we always can see people from poor family, from poor background, like parents, alcoholic, whatever it is, achieve the great social position and a great success. Absolutely. But how many of these people? Because again, it takes incredible determination and a willpower. Yeah. And again, we come back again to the metaphysical aspect of prenatal energies. We're born with let's say 10 souls. 3 is a Hun. That's what child born. It's a 3 prenatal souls already. That means child passed certain test and already got 3 souls. Or it's a new soul. And a high energy gives us 3 souls. But then during our life, we develop other 7 souls. They call it Po. And that's what responsible for a prevailing intellect. If prevailing intellect is a prevailing intellect, then Po nourishes the Hun. And then in the next transformation, when body like an old clothes gone, then Hun and Po together, because again, if it's spiritual Po, if it's nourished the prenatal energy, then go to another dimension. So the whole idea of our test on this dimension to develop our intellect and nourish what we got in the beginning. 3 souls Hun. It is metaphysical aspect, but it's very important actually to make a bridge from metaphysics to reality of our physical life here.
As Tao men, we use nature as our example, and you can see in nature that there's no, if any, examples of benevolence where one animal is helping another animal if they're in need and if they need to survive. There's a ceasefire when they're around the watering hole, but that's just more of a mutual benefit that they don't start attacking each other. But there's no lions hugging the lambs, as some would like to think, as some would think that that's the natural progression that the human race should follow. So that's one more litmus of why it's such an unnatural and dangerous concept.
The Grand Master also mentioned the idea of our life as a precarious balance on many levels. There is a famous parable of the celestial foxes where the celestial fox comes to an inn, and the innkeeper there is a Taoist philosopher. And he's not afraid of the celestial foxes like many of the peasant Chinese at the time in ancient China were. So he invites the fox spirit in, and they have dinner, and they have wine, and they have a philosophical interaction and conversation. And the next morning, after they go to sleep, the fox spirit is very grateful to the innkeeper for his kindness and his benevolence, giving him wine and food and company, great company. And the fox spirit gives him this wand, basically the stick, and he tells them that for his benevolence, he's going to bestow this unbelievable gift upon him that can basically turn any material object into gold. So he would be incredibly wealthy by accepting this gift. The innkeeper is a Taoist philosopher, and he says to the fox that, well, your gift is very precious and generous. I can't accept it. And he says, my life is a balance, a precarious balance on many levels. And if I were to accept your incredibly generous gift, then the wealth that I would accumulate with this gift would throw my life out of harmony and balance, and I would suffer as a result of it. He says that today I have all the financial success that I need. My inn allows me to pay my bills, to have some kind of budget. I have wine and food, and I'm able to spend time with my friends and converse and drink my wine and food. And if I was to accept your generous, benevolent gift, it would throw my life into turmoil. It would ruin the precarious balance of my life and harmony.
That goes back to what the Grand Master was saying earlier about trying to manage my own life and understanding what I need and what I don't need and what I should do to enhance my life and to encourage my own growth. That the innkeeper is very wise here, that he understands his place in the world and where his balance is and what sort of perturbations he can't afford to make to it. And we should all be so insightful about ourselves that we try to do our best, and if we're aware we're trying to pass the test, then maybe we'll succeed. I think it gives us a better perspective and a better chance of passing the test. But it's still very difficult to know what is the best thing to do for myself.
Yes, David, you're absolutely correct. It's another thing. Of course, benevolence exists. And of course, actually, we have to bestow us idea of benevolence, but only to the people of our cocoon. Why? Because cocoon, it's us. We spend so much time. Cocoon in a Taoist alchemy, again, it's your close family. Sometimes, unfortunately, not. Or close friends, yes. So you live with these people so close, you know what they need, what they don't need, what they desire, and we can help those close people because it's actually one aspect of benevolence which is totally permittable in an aspect of the great Tao. Then we can do that because it's actually helping myself. I help my close friend. I have my close relative, which is also sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. You see, the idea of benevolence touch a lot of different aspects, like for instance, desires of the mind. The question: do I need that? What can happen? What outcome approximately will be if I'll help this person? It's like David, you said about children. You can really take all aspects of the risk from the children. And now they don't pass the test because they do not test their power. If they have some power. Well, we all have some power. Some people have, again, very strong, like I said, determination and willpower. Some people have less. But how do we know, how the children know if they never tested? You see, it's again precarious balance. On the one hand, parents want to protect children, and they're creating actually the greenhouse for them. Then children never test their power, so they don't really have energy to survive of cataclysms of life. So they become to be immediately victims, not the hunters. So that's precarious balance between protect someone who you love too much, taking a risk from the life of this person. Again, interference with the life and a fate and a test of this person. Can we afford to be so ruthless to interfere with those tests? That's the question. Please, David.
No, it's exactly it. It's one thing to prevent your 2-year-old from walking out in front of a car because the 2-year-old is too small to know about the danger. It's a different thing to interfere with your 20-year-old by calling their college professor and saying, no, my child needs a better grade. That you have to have a sense of proportion on this and what is appropriate and what is not. And that's not always an easy thing to do.
The Grand Master brings up an interesting principle that we've talked about before, that there is true benevolence within the cocoon. So a mother loves her child. You wouldn't call this benevolence. It's just natural and genuine. And yet, externally, benevolence outside of your cocoon is actually interference. So we have the idea of internal true benevolence between your close people who have the same values as you. As the Grand Master said, it's like your left and right hand. You foster these people, but it's basically fostering yourself. Outside, the idea of universal love or benevolence for everyone, that's this artificial idea that's basically interference in the natural order of things. And this will create some kind of mess. We don't understand, because of our limited nature, the cause and effect of our actions. And this will create some kind of mess in the harmony of things. We don't see the harmony of the great universe because we're so limited. We don't understand the pattern of chi and how things work. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a pattern and there isn't a great harmony. So our interference in this harmony creates a mess, and you're basically interfering with the will of the gods.
We have in our Taoist pantheon the goddess of mercy, and the Grand Master was explaining to us that she's not there to bestow benevolence and forgiveness upon us. When you go to pray to the goddess of mercy, you need to take responsibility and have the insight to see where your weaknesses are, so that when you're praying to her, she can see whether you're going to be working towards bettering yourself in whatever field you're asking for help in, as opposed to just saying, help me in this field because I screwed up and I just need you to erase it and make it go away. You need to be responsible for your actions and for what you've done in the past, and for also fixing it. The gods aren't there to make things easier for you. They're there to assess you as you're asking them for help.
Right, and you are asking them not for, if you're wise, you're not asking them for specific help. You're asking them for the clarity and the insight to figure out for yourself what it is you need and what it is you need to do, and to separate that from all the desires of the mind that society is trying to impose on you to persuade you that what you need is actually something utterly different from what you truly need. And in fact, that's one of the things I've been asking the Goddess of Mercy for, is clarity in exactly this, to understand what do I need, and in particular, what do I need that I'm not seeing now.
There's a very interesting manifestation of benevolence on the cover of the last book that the Grand Master wrote, called The Synopsis of Tao. On the cover, we have the Taoist heavenly spirit, the immortal Yu Lei. In his right hand, he holds the celestial pill of rejuvenation and wisdom. His expression and posture show that not everyone will receive the pill of rejuvenation and wisdom. He holds the pill in a guarded position and basically shows that this great privilege must be deserved. Not everyone will get it. Only a true seeker who has the burning desire for prevailing intellect will receive the pill. So it's not a benevolent gift that's bestowed upon people that don't deserve it. If it's not earned or deserved, you won't receive the rejuvenation. There is no benevolence. The person needs to deserve the great gift of rejuvenation. We also have the three treasures, which are very, very interesting. And one of the treasures says never too much. And it's very, very interesting. It's stated explicitly that anything in excess is bad, especially money. And that's what the principle says. So to give someone anything in excess that they don't deserve, especially some kind of financial help, is basically ruining both you and them. And that's from the great celestial master, Lao Tzu.
Well, that's the fact that goes back to if you consider the popular conception of the word benevolence, it would imagine, say, the monarch scattering gold coins to the multitudes just randomly, and with no consideration for who can make good use of it, who would make good use of it, and who would act foolishly or recklessly or carelessly with it. And this goes back to the question of, I can do things for my cocoon because I understand them. I know what they need. I know what they truly need and what they can truly benefit from. But some random person I come across in the street, I don't know them. I don't know what they need.
And again, we don't know what deserve. What is deserve? The word who deserve what? Do we know that? This is what is a person who deserve? If we'll dissect this word, again we come back to idea of Taoism. It's an ultimate reality, understanding of our ultimate reality. But how can I understand ultimate reality? Only, again, myself. Because every time I have to dissect my desires, my behavior, my wishes. Again, it's most important part, that's what great teacher Lao Tzu said. It's to declare war on yourself. That's discipline myself. Again, clarity, David said about clarity, absolutely. So clarity of thoughts, it's what I need, what I don't need, what people around me want from me. So we're coming back again to aspect of healthy egocentrism. And everybody has self-interest. Because everybody has self-interest, that's another aspect of our life. We intercept constantly with those things, and then we come back programming. For instance, if you give a monkey like 2 bananas and try to explain to the monkey that 1 banana should be shared with other monkeys, I'm not sure this monkey will understand it. He'll grab 2 bananas, second banana, and run away. And in a high place, will eat them all. So for control of us, we're giving some kind of artificial values of what we should do, what we shouldn't do. It's a social training which actually communicator gives us. Anyway, that's just a small aspect of understanding Taoist ideas per se.
The Grand Master has explained to us that the purpose of life is a test, and the development of our prevailing intellect is one of the main aspects of that test. Prevailing intellect has 2 aspects, one internal and one external. Internally, we need to harmonize our emotions with intellect. That means that even though we might be hot or excited about a certain thing or angry, we need to harmonize those feelings with intellect so we don't act hastily, so we don't do things that are not adequate based on our flaring emotions. So the harmonization of our emotions is an incredibly hard thing to do, but that's one internal aspect of prevailing intellect. The external aspect of prevailing intellect is to take the propaganda of society and the programming of the structure around us and to harmonize that with our internal values and try and understand what's good for us as an individual. So the purpose of our life is to develop our intellect and spirituality for the great journey to the other dimension at the end of our lives. It's not to create a better society. It's not to accumulate a bunch of material things. That's what the structure in society would tell us. But our prevailing intellect has to harmonize that propaganda and that external pressure to not take us off the path of intellectual development and spiritual evolution.
Another element of benevolence is that it can be a trap. The only free thing that comes is cheese in a trap. And usually if you find yourself on the receiving end of benevolence that you haven't earned, it's more than likely a mechanism of control. It's bread and circus. It's something that the social structure is using to push you in a direction that is beneficial for them and not you as an individual.
I think what we usually can take almost as an axiom is that whatever the social structure is trying to push you to do is good for the social structure and bad for you.
Well, we can call those manipulators social gangsters. So this so-called social gangsters using Again, like we discussed it before, the fairness is a great mechanism, you know. So to create the mess with the millions of people. But what social gangsters want, it is like social bandits, like Lenin, Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong, they just want to gain power. They want to use and abuse all other people, enslave them, make them slave for their own benefits. That's it. So, but to create this power, of course, they're using the most cheapest actually ideas. And cheap idea is again fairness, democracy, bringing happiness for all. It's a mission impossible for all. But that's what key words for so-called, let's call them social gangsters, who basically want to seduce the simple-minded people with some kind of idea of global fairness and then destroy these millions of people. Look what's happened in the last century. It's a Russian Revolution, Lenin, Stalin, and Germany, Hitler, Third Reich. This is incredible example, actually, how few social bandits just used the manipulation of the masses just to gain own power. That's it. Claiming they want to help their nation, they want to help the whole world. Yeah, I remember I grew up in Soviet Union. I heard those ridiculous things like international revolution. The whole world have to create a revolution and become to be a communist. Thanks God, never happened actually. So otherwise, our globe will be one big concentration camp. So we have to be very careful with all those slogans and ideas. Again, come back to the self-interest because we're little limited things. Without end, I can repeat it, we're limited things. And maximum energy or chi we have, let's use for our own benefits. That's it. Of course, let's not confuse again benevolence, just respect to other people, to other human beings. But it's a different. Well, of course, we have to respect all human beings, actually, which live in this world. But it doesn't mean we have to love them. We have to give them whatever it is because we don't know outcome of our actions. Please, Peter.
I just like the term that you used earlier, ruthless benevolence. People try to save the world with their ruthless benevolence. I'm sure Stalin and Hitler and all the others had a great plan to make the world a better place.
Well, I think you can see that even if we take out the gangsters and the criminals, that the idealists can be just as dangerous because people who are sure that they know what is right for everyone, and if you really, really are sure you know that, you'll be willing to go to almost any length to bring it about. And you can be just as ruthless as Mao Zedong or Hitler or Stalin or anyone else because your goals are so noble.
You're absolutely correct. That's a great point, David. Absolutely, yes. Idealist, actually, especially kind of militaristic idealist, is a very dangerous creature because for some kind of idea, they're ready to destroy millions of people. You're absolutely correct. That's idea of the big idea.
In Lao Tzu's chapter, Humanity and Justice, he talks exactly about this principle, Dave. He explains, there's a footnote in there that's really very interesting, where he says that the social sages at the time, not only did they espouse the artificial ideas of humanity and justice, but they did so to create a reputation for themselves. So while there was this idealist idea of creating this utopian society full of humanity and justice, there was also the idea of personally creating some kind of position for themselves. So this aspect goes from two ways. It's creating some kind of position in the social structure for yourself using these artificial ideas of benevolence and humanity and justice.
I think part of it comes back to also that if you are the one who has come up with this great idea for how to build the ideal society, you're going to be doubtful that anybody else really grasps your idea properly. And so you really have to run things because you just can't be too sure that those other people will do it right. So this necessarily puts you in a position of power, because otherwise it might just get messed up.
There's a line in Chuang-Tzu where he talks about the rise of sages also brought the rise of gangsters.
That's right.
And this is, again, an aspect of the inability to see the consequences of our action, that you come up with this wonderful idea that you're sure if you just impose it on everybody, things are going to be great. Well, because we are so limited, we are not going to be able to see all the outcomes of our wonderful idea. And our wonderful idea is going to blow up in some really interesting ways that we never thought of. It's often known as the Law of Unintended Consequences.
Chuang-Tzu writes a very interesting thing, right, in the Humanity and Justice chapter. And he basically writes about opening trunks. And he says that you can have a trunk locked full of things, but the large thief will come and just carry the whole trunk away. And the analogy is that at the top of the social structure, someone can come and steal the whole structure for their own needs. So the government can rotate and a new set of social gangsters will come. But they'll still use the government and the propaganda for their own purposes. And the expression is, steal a hook, hang as a crook. Steal the government and you're made a duke, which is very interesting. So at the top level, you can steal the whole structure and use it for your own internal purposes.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, Rick. Then we can come back again to the benevolence, helping others, and etc. It's always go head to head with the idea of criticism. You know, we human beings will love to criticize anybody else. So that means we're automatically putting ourselves on a higher position of intellect, let's say. It's always this person is a chip. We say, oh God, yeah, he's a chip. So again, follow the Chuang-Tzu. The common man will immediately blame the cheap person, how terrible person is a chip. But the Tao man should say, oh my God, I see this cheapness in someone else. I have the same diseases. Or this person is a coward. And of course, common men start to scream, he's a coward, and I'm a brave man. But the Tao man should say, wow, it's the same disease. I'm a coward too. I have the same disease what anybody else has. Difference between Tao man and a common man. The Tao man declaring war on ourselves. So if I can see something negative in someone else, I say, oh my God, I have the same seed. I have a seed of cheapness, I have seed of cowardness, I have undecisive something. But the difference is that I declare war on myself. I constantly fighting with my limitations, with my diseases, and that's what I do. You know, it's a very important to understand the benevolence. People try to be benevolent to someone else having million diseases. That's what it is. They're trying to be benevolent actually when they're not in the position to be benevolent.
Well, what you said about I criticize someone because they're cheap, but that psychologically there's this phenomenon known as projection, where I have a flaw, but I can't bear to look at it in myself. So I put it on somebody else and say, look, that person has this flaw, which they may indeed have, but I'm completely ignoring my own limitation, my own flaw. As you say, as a good Tao man, I can't do that. I have to be willing to face up to my own flaws, limitations, errors, and try to declare war on myself and see if I can't improve them. Maybe I can't make them go away, but I can at least try to improve.
Again, Chuang-Tzu had a great line, the bad man is the lesson of the good.
No, David, you're absolutely correct. It's a very good point. And that's maximum what we can do with our tests to help ourselves. That's it. And a Cocoon, 2-3 people, help again, but not really protect them from everything and anything, like we talked before, children. You know, moment you take interesting element of risk from the life, our life, our life, our children, our pets, our dogs, cats, whatever it is. It's becoming to be some kind of greenhouse creature which cannot really to do anything for themselves. So basically we're creating some kind of helpless creature which never tested the power. And that's what result of our so-called benevolence. It's a very dangerous principles, like most other principles of great Tao. And we have to be, again, it's a precarious balance between desires of the mind, how we want to help someone, what we think is going to happen, but then there is a reality. In reality, we don't know outcome again. That's why I have to be careful, careful, careful with any action, especially with action of benevolence.
Yeah, the true meaning of the word irony, which gets misused a lot, is that when I try to bring about a certain result, and the actual result I get is the exact opposite of what I was trying to bring about. And that's probably the most extreme example, but this is exactly what we're talking about, that by trying to protect something, we make something that cannot protect itself at all.
I know we spoke before about praying to the great celestial spirits for help. And we always pray for nothing concrete. We pray for clarity of mind, we pray for health and guidance and protection. And we don't pray for anything concrete because we don't even understand what we need, what's good for us. So if we don't understand what's good for us or what we need, how can we benevolently give other people things that they need or what's good for them? We don't understand what's good for them and what they need. We don't understand what's good for ourselves. We can only pray for clarity of mind so we can navigate the situation in the present moment.
That's correct. Only gods who have unbelievable celestial power can decide what to do with us. We're mortals. Our life is really short, no matter what. So we, being again limited mortals, how dare we try to play gods?
It came back to what you said, the word deserve. How do we know what people deserve, really? You say people, we use the word, like, well, you deserve punishment or you deserve something really good. That's a very arrogant thing for a very limited mortal person to say.
No, that's absolutely correct. Who deserve what? The outcome of our actions really unknown. We approximately trying to figure out what's going on. But if you bring to the real world, let's say, I approximately drive the car on a highway. Yeah, it's so much absurdity in so-called approximately or planning. Planning is another thing. Yeah. Benevolence, that means I plan something, helping someone, and outcome will be fantastic. It's like planning for positive things. Nobody planning, again, we discussed before, that tomorrow I'll break the leg, or after tomorrow will be fire in a house, or somebody will break in a house and start to rob you. We're always people planning, actually, positive things. If you notice, nobody really planning some kind of disaster, because it's not going to happen, of course, in the heads of the man. But it's happened positive and negative. And if we go only for positive, then outcome will be terrible.
This comes back to expectations as well. People have the expectations, especially these days where atheism is on the rise. I've heard people say, well, there can't be a God because if there was a God, why would he let these horrible things happen? That's because they have the expectation that a divine being would only be doing these wonderful, beneficial things to people and not testing them through hardship and through adversity. So they have this kind of childish expectation that only good things can come from the gods.
And also, again, the most important thing, it has to be pragmatic. Taoist teachings, Tao man is a pragmatic man. Yeah. Someone can sarcastically say, oh, are you just meat eaters? Yes, we are. because we have to check any concept we have to check it out. If I'm benevolent to my dog, I want to see result. Dog enjoy the food I gave. If dog is sick, I bring the dog to veterinarian. So that has to be a result. Maybe it's a vulgar example, but it's very simple. We have to see pretty much immediately a result of our benevolent action. Or then it's come back to idea of our fantasies. I bestow these things on this person, and this person will do this, and they will grow spiritually, physically, etc. But maybe it won't grow. Maybe this person will become to be drug addict with all this our benevolence material things, or something else happen. So it's constantly has to be checked on a pragmatic level. My act of benevolence, I want to see a result of that. Otherwise, I'm going to the ocean, my own fantasies, desires of the mind, and etc., etc. Fata Morganas, call it whatever we want. So it's very important to check practically result of benevolent action. Otherwise, it goes to the world of fantasies.
In modern society, we use this example of winning the lottery a lot of times. So one would think that winning the lottery and getting this windfall of money would be a benevolent and good thing. And then many times these people's lives are ruined from this. As the Grand Master said, they become drug addicts, or people come out of the woodwork torturing them for help with this money. A lot of times the windfall of this benevolent gift is not a gift at all. It's some kind of road to ruin.
I think more than half the time that turns out to be the case. And other actions we take when they're not well thought out. I was thinking, for example, there have been cases where an island had venomous snakes on it, and the snakes were dangerous to the people who moved there. So they said, we will solve this snake problem and we will bring in mongooses to eat the snakes, because we all know mongooses eat snakes. So they brought them in. And mongooses do eat snakes, but snakes are a tough target. And mongooses also eat chickens. And so the mongooses did not eat the snakes. They went to the hen houses and ate the people's chickens instead. So, and this is a fairly simple example of where thinking did not really go into this very deep. In fact, these days when people try to introduce a new species, they often spend many, many years looking for the booby traps in it just to see, does this thing we're going to add have bad effects that we didn't know about? And okay, they can be wrong, but at least this is one rare case where people are trying to think, well, what if I break my leg? What's the bad thing that's going to happen here?
You know, I love the Taoist parable of what's good and bad, right? We don't even know what's good and bad. There is a parable that the Grand Master shared with us years ago where the Chinese farmer wakes up one day and there's a horse in his farm, and it's not his horse. And his neighbor comes over and says, wow, you're very, very lucky. You got this horse and it's not your horse. And the farmer is a Taoist philosopher, and he says, we really don't know what's good and bad. So the next day, the son is shoeing the horse, and the horse kicks him and breaks his leg. And the neighbor comes over and he says, oh, your son broke his leg shoeing the horse. That's very bad luck. And the farmer is a Taoist sage, and he says, who knows what's good and bad? And the next day, the government comes through conscripting farmers to be soldiers in some kind of external conflict. And the son can't go because his leg is broken. And his neighbor says, you're very lucky. And the farmer says, who knows what's good and bad? So the moral of it is, who really knows what's good and bad? I mean, and this farmer, who was a Taoist philosopher, understood that things may look benevolent and good, but in reality, they could be very bad for you. Or vice versa, something could look very bad and in the end be some kind of beneficial thing.
That's absolutely correct. Again, come back to our limitations. Limitations of understanding reality. And most important, limitations of prognoses. That's what it is. It's like weather prognosis. Sometimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's okay, but sometimes it isn't. It's like a gun which shoots good or bad, and you don't know when it's going to shoot. good or bad. It's going to jam or it's not going to jam. It's a great gun, but once in a while it jam. When it's going to jam? Oh, well, just once, just when you need it. So it's again coming back to limitations and expectations which we have. It's the whole society gives us idea that we little mortals now we absolutely in the control of our destiny and we can do whatever we want and the sky is a limit and we're going to live forever too, or at least for a very long time, and we can do this and that. And we think our horizons will be open much wider than we can just imagine. But again, come back to word of imagination. We imagine. Don't forget the great words of Dante Alighieri. Good intentions paved road to hell. That means we're planning something, we have great expectations, we have great intentions, but what's going to happen, only God knows.
And it shows that good intentions are nowhere near enough. In fact, good intentions they do matter in the sense that that's why we're trying to be benevolent, is we have good intentions. But because of our limitations, we so often can be wrong about the outcome of our well-intended actions.
It's like idea, basically a little mortal man said, I'm a benevolent person. I want to help this and I want to help to those group of people, to them. How little, basically worm in our yard trying to save the world. That's what it is. It's maybe sounds terrible, but we're so limited. We're such a short time in this world. We barely can plan our actual life for the next day, week. Yeah, but we're planning for years ahead. In other words, if you want to make God's laugh, tell him your plan. Plan of little mortal human being, Homo sapiens. It's like gambling with a high universe, actually, with a great architect.
The Grand Master spoke about a principle also that our life is short and we don't have a lot of time. The great Chuang-Tzu wrote in the book that our life is like a fleeting horse galloping over the rock crevice. If the purpose of our life is a test, and our idea is to develop our prevailing intellect and spirituality, and we have a very limited time and a very limited amount of energy and resources to do that, can we afford to take on the responsibility of helping this whole other group or culture or developing the world? We don't have time for that, and we don't have energy. We need to use our time and energy to develop ourselves, because in the end, that's what the test is all about. It's not about developing a utopian society. It's about developing ourselves as spiritual beings.
Utopian individual.
Pretty much, but that's about, as you say, that's really about all that we do have time for. Obviously, we have to take care of the day-to-day. And if we have our cocoon, we have to take care of that. But even trying to develop yourself is a slow process, and it's hard work, and you're going to make mistakes. That alone is a pretty big chunk of your life. If you're out there trying to save the world instead, you're going to have no time to develop yourself at all.
That's correct. Let's not forget that in a modern society, in a modern life, we don't have much time for ourselves at all. Between traffic, again, simple, pragmatic thing. Traffic, work, people have children. They have no time for anything. So in this limited time, also should be wasted, I'm not afraid of this word, for some kind of idealistic idea of helping anybody else when they can't even help themselves even. To find a few minutes to read the book.
I've even seen this principle that people who take this benevolent posture and want to help like a whole group of people or a different country, they themselves, their life is in turmoil and it's an absolute mess. So you would think that they would kind of get their own life in order before they go off to solve the world's problems. And yet, I think many times that this idea of this global help and expansion is basically a defense mechanism because their own personal life is such a mess. So they feel like they're doing this benevolent thing. That's what they're here for. Not to develop themselves and solve their own issues and problems, but to do some kind of global thing.
Trying to deflect from their own shortcomings.
Absolutely correct. It's actually, you can call it great escape from my own problems. Because I don't have energy to deal with my problems, human being said, small, little, weak human being. But you know what? I'll help anybody else. My life is nothing. It's not nothing because it's spiritual nothing, because the poor person cannot do anything with their life. Because again, have no determination, willpower, energy to take care of own life. But then it's absolutely great shield to deflect own weaknesses. I'll help the whole world. Yeah, it's very typical.
The best man on earth is the worst man in heaven because he hasn't taken care of himself on earth.
That's right. And after you have finished saving the world is probably not going to appreciate your efforts.
Gratitude.
It's a great point, Pete, that the best man on earth is the worst man in heaven, and the best man in heaven is the worst man on earth. And it's a direct quote from Chuang-Tzu in Lin Yu Tang's The Wisdom of Lao Tzu. And it means that we don't really understand the values of heaven. So many times we think we're being benevolent on earth and we're being a great person, but we're actually interfering in the harmony and great architect's plan. So it's interesting. Well, the reformer on earth may be a great person here. He's actually created an unbelievable amount of interference in the great universe's plan. So he's a horrible man in heaven because he's interfering with the great architect's plan.
He's lived his life by artificial values, social values, instead of those of the Tao.
That's why Tao man, by understanding our limitation, weaknesses, and short period of time on this test, constantly going for help of the gods. Only the gods, the immortal spirits, they can plan, because time doesn't exist for them. Experience, intellect is already there. We really gotta go to higher power constantly for help. That's why magic diagrams, which actually improve our communication with a higher energy, with the great ultimate. That's what we're praying to the gods for guidance, for clarity of mind, for clarity of picture of the world. Only they could be benevolent really, because that's this incredible power of universe, and that's what metaphysical aspect of the Taoism so important, help of the higher energy. And if we come back about benevolence idea, only great spirits could be benevolent. That's why we're going to Kuan Yin and ask for a mercy. What is a mercy? Give us understanding of reality, what I need, what I don't need. We'll go to the great guide of Guandi and help us, the great spirit. Help me with business or what to do, because I'm so weak and limited. Only gods can be really benevolent, and that's what the great actual secret of the life. Only alchemy of Tao tells you how to deal with magic diagrams, burning them, actually bringing communication between mortal and a god. That's the true benevolence.
Thank you once again for listening to our podcast, Taoist Secrets, The Great Awakening. If you wish to learn more about Grand Master Alex Anatole, classical Taoism, and the Temple of Original Simplicity, please visit Tao.org. That's Tao.org. You can also visit our Facebook page at the Center of Traditional Taoist Studies. Please join us for our next episode when we discuss the concept of programming and decoding.